IVM.
In the agency world, we most times make the client the bad guy. We make the client the butt of all memes that go out about, asking for fast turnarounds or making the logo bigger or doing all these things. But the modern marketer on the brand side, for someone like me on the client side, is someone who's actually a partner. Who's a partner who works with you towards a common goal, where you each have certain roles and the fact that you respect each other's roles and the mix of it. And when those roles are clearly defined and that respect is built not just on the fact that we both understand what the other side is capable of as well as what the other side is actually working towards. When we respect that is when we actually deliver results, because we live in a result-driven world now. We don't live in a world that's only about glamour behind awards or just like, let's make a large-scale creative, but it's about saying, can we make effective marketing? Can we make an effective creative? Can we deliver stuff that helps a brand grow and evolve? And that's what a modern marketer is. And it's been 29 weeks, and this is going to be our first person from the brand side is going to come onto the show. And the idea was that whoever comes in should have a perspective on how things are now, and also about how the perspective is different. And I'm super kicked. I could convince Shivram, who leads brand marketing at LinkedIn, to kind of come on, because our teams work closely together, full disclosure. And what I have seen and what I've heard about how that works is actually what modern marketing is. So I want to dig into a lot of that in terms of what it takes to be a new age brand marketer, and a lot of segues and pivots along the way. This is Advertising is Dead. I'm Varun Dugirala, co-founder and content chief for The Glitch. And a side note to some feedback I got that I go, okay, true, to guests who kind of come on. I'm trying to cut that down. So please continue to tell me if it's still too high. I will try to make it even lower. I'm trying.
Hi, I'm Vishal Gondal, an entrepreneur. I've had the chance to meet and understand how some of the super achievers have hacked their way to success, and they have done spectacular innovations. Now I take a closer look at these people's lives to find out what lies beneath the force, only on the Vishal Gondal Show. Episodes out fortnightly on Wednesdays on the IVM website, app, or your favorite podcasting platform.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're still with Shivram, who leads brand marketing at LinkedIn. Welcome to the show. We finally do this. This has been a work in progress for a while now.
Well, thank you, Varun. Yes, it has been a work in progress, but all good things take time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was so self-congratulatory. I didn't mean it like that.
You know, whenever we talk about, and I think we've spent 29 weeks talking about everybody who's creating stuff, everybody who's on the agency side, you would be the first person who's on the brand side who's kind of coming on the show and kind of giving that perspective, because like we were just discussing offline, social media has given brands a bad name in terms of the cliches of what a client is, which is the make the logo bigger, I need this ASAP, all that stuff. I think it's important to address those and also kind of figure what a new age marketer actually does.
So the weight on my shoulders being the first one from the brand side is immense, and I hope I see them through. I mean, social media specifically, I've seen a lot of brands talk about it. Not brands specifically, I mean, social media channels. They have these stereotypes about brand managers, brands, and they're very vocal about it. A lot of comics also talk about it because they make that jump from the corporate to, not being a suit, as they say. These stereotypes range from, logo bada karo, this, like you were saying, this yellow is not yellow enough.
Yes.
I mean, these are stereotypes, but the problem with stereotypes are they're not true. Yes, there is some amount of truth in them, but they're incomplete. Yeah. They don't paint the entire picture. So if a brand, is of a certain, because brands also have to live up to set norms, and they have global values and global culture and global standards. So they come from a certain place of honesty. Mm-hmm. So do agencies, right? When it becomes more pedestrian, when we get into the nitty-gritties of it, when you're trying to, when you're almost divergent in the way you're approaching a creative.
Correct.
So then when you're trying to get your idea across, and that comes from clarity of thought, which is, I mean, back when you start that first discussion or when you land the account, or are you setting each other up for success?
Yeah.
And I love...
Are you setting the right expectations?
Yes. So I love using sales guys as an example because nothing is more clearer than a sales pitch, right? What is it in that, like, if the both of us are sitting in a room, right? And let's say you are buying and I'm selling, right? What do you gain from buying this?
Yeah.
And what do I gain from selling this, right? If we're in a room and as a brand marketer, right, what is it in it for you, right? Are you trying to get a promotion? Are you trying to get recognition in the industry, right? What is it? It boils down to us as humans.
Almost what our intentions are, right?
Yeah. Like, what is the eventual goal of what we're doing? Like you said, setting us up for success.
And what's really also changed over the last, let's say, I would say, couple of or 10 odd years is the fact that what traditionally marketers would do from being on the brand side versus what they would kind of, I wouldn't say outsource, but really hand over to the agencies to do has really changed in the sense that it's a lot more of a partnership now. And the way I've seen it evolve over time is, and the successful ones or even which are, I would not say just the new age ones. I think also the traditional ones who have evolved have all understood that as long as it's a partnership and you work like partners, you work like one team, that's when it really comes through. It's the transactional aspect of it is actually what really kills marketing today.
Yeah, so I love that you bring up the word partnership because it's easier said than done. Because there is a line in the sand somewhere which says, hey, I'm a brand marketer and you're my agency. I mean, that the more blurred that is, the better. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to create value, right? Whatever that might mean to you. And the moment you start working with an agency that, speaks the same language and you give them the same kind of motivation that you have, and that's hard to do, right? Like, because agencies tend to work on X number of projects and, their time might not be completely spent on one brand, whereas a brand marketer is heads down on the brand that they work with. But if they're both bought into the same idea and they're trying to help each other out and being a partner, because at the end of the day, a brand marketer, when they work with an agency, why do they work with a specific agency, right? Because the agency has certain strengths that appeal to them and they will help them go from A to B, right? But the moment the brand marketer starts having an opinion about those strengths is when it becomes questionable. If I get you to produce a video for me, is because I'm not the best person to do it. I know what my brand wants from that video, but I will not be able to figure out the white balance on the damn camera, right? Which is why I need you to do that for me. And if I don't give you that opportunity to do it, I mean, why are we even doing this in the first place?
That's actually an interesting thing, right? A lot of times what happens is it's about you've gotten someone to do a job, and if you tell them how to exactly do that job, then you're not really using them to that potential.
Exactly.
I understand the pros and cons of that is that it is micromanaging many times feels, and it's not just a brand agency thing. It is every company. This is a problem, right? It's the fact that the tendency is to micromanage for as long as you can because you're so worried to hand it over to someone else.
That could also be true of, within teams. Like as a manager and someone who reports into a manager. I mean, what is success to you? Like as a manager, what do you see yourself doing next? Why do you have a team with you? Because so that they can do what you do today. Right? If they don't do what you do today, how will you do what your manager does tomorrow? You
took the words right out of my mouth. This has been this is my standard line, I think, every week to someone in the team. Right. My analogy is that you have a plate of a certain size. If that plate is full, you can only add more stuff in if you take some stuff off and give it to somebody else.
Correct.
And otherwise, it's just going to overflow. And that's a tough one. Like people just. And I understand that because at some point we've all done it. We've all not want to let go.
Delegation is hard, but I don't know where this came from. I think this was my manager who said this, that 70% is good enough. Like if you're going, let's say you're painting a picture. And if if someone else is now going to paint the same picture, 70% of it is as good as you did, it's fine. Because the 30% is the room for them to grow.
Exactly.
Same holds true for agencies, right? They bring in a certain perspective. Let them be 70% right and let the 30% be free for them to innovate, to make it better. Because if you keep doing it, you'll keep doing it the same way because there's no one right way to do anything. So that's where I think you have to give that room for each other to grow, and from managers to people who work in teams to agencies to brands. Like I said, it all boils down to, as a human emotion, how do you make the most of your time?
Yeah. Did you always want to be on the brand side?
So I'd never really set out to be on the brand side. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone does. I think anyone sets out to be someone who's successful, who does.
मैं बड़ा होके client बनूंगा.
Correct. I mean, I hope the kids of today are not saying that. And like I have, I'm giving myself too much leeway when I say this. I have worked on the agency side.
Yeah.
I worked in a public relations agency, but that was just 11 months. I learned so much from that agency. And it's not about, hey, I learned how to build strategy. I learned how to, talk to VPs and, approach a problem. I learned how to write a damn email.
Yeah.
Right? What is the best way to get your idea across? How do I, make myself useful in meetings where I'm there because, an extended team is there? Can I be contributing to that meeting? Right? It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think I learned a lot, and credit to my, people I work with. Good managers are, worth their weight in gold.
True.
And agencies have then contributed, and that is why I recommend almost anyone I met who's, recently graduating, wants to work in a brand and they're fresh out of college. I'm like, make that switch to an agency.
Yeah.
Learn it the way it's meant to be learned, where you're working on 10 brands, right?
True.
Your nights are taken away from you, your weekends are taken away from you. And I'm not saying working hard is the only way to do it. Work smart.
Yeah.
Right? And the easiest way to get someone to work smart is to make sure they're a lazy person to begin with. And that was me for the longest time. We'll find the shortest way to, our destination.
Yeah. And when you spoke about the fact that you start off an agency, right? That's interesting because if you look at the number of people who've actually moved from agencies to working for brands, especially I look at new age brands, right? And why I go back to new age versus traditional is that traditional has built over the years many layers and many systems. The new age ones primarily have built systems, let's say over the last decade or so, which means that the role someone could play is almost like what you would play in a startup, or what you would do more things than you would traditionally. Because the reason why people worked in agencies versus working with brands was you would get to do more. Whereas the perception was that if you work for a brand that you would live a 9-to-5 existence and then that you would just be punching in and punching out. Just your work would all be done by somebody else and they would all have the fun. That's totally changed.
Absolutely. I think brands have evolved.
Yeah.
And I was listening to, you talk with another of your guests, and I forget that gentleman's name, but I think they were talking about how agencies have gotten there much later than brands have.
Yeah.
Because brands have to, move with it, and agencies are keeping up.
Yeah.
They're not getting ahead of it. But the reason why I bring it up is, that perception that, brand side is greener. It could be money, or it could be, getting the exposure inside a brand versus an agency, or whatever that means to you. I think it's also, and I'm digressing, but it's also the fear of failure. In an agency, you're allowed to work on 10 brands and do more work, but you're also allowed to fail a lot more.
Yeah.
You're allowed to fail faster, right? It's like if you lose a football match during an entire league, there's the next Sunday to look forward to, because then you'll win, and then so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
You build that ladder.
Yeah.
When you're at a brand, you're working on that one brand.
Yeah.
If there is a certain level of failure, there is not another brand you can suddenly switch to. It's that same brand, and brands take forever to be nurtured, and there's a lot of money being spent on brands to make sure they see the light of day. So I would, and it's also like the switch, coming back to the switch from agency to brands. And I'm generalizing, but and I'm sorry for that. But what I've seen is, over a period of time and my limited career, I've seen people start with an agency where they get, a lot of exposure. Then they make that switch to a brand which they think they connect with.
Yeah.
Let's say you work on a brand for 4 years and you know the ethos. It's so much more easier for the brand to now absorb you.
Exactly.
And do the exact same, and get you to do the exact same thing that, you were doing for them.
Yeah.
And then eventually, once you realize, maybe I don't want to spend the rest of my life working on one brand.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the agency life, where maybe in a more senior role, maybe someone who has his finger in a lot many pies, his or her finger in a lot many pies. So
the problem with agencies, which I've seen, is not the fact that the work isn't exciting. A lot of people say the work's too chaotic now, there are too many things happening. The problem is that you're trying to cling on to systems that are Mad Men era, right? And there's a reason why that did not work out.
Yeah.
That's really the core problem. Don't glamorize. So I don't never glamorize the large scale television commercial. I look at any asset as, is it actually building value, right? Is there some value or values to it in that sense? And as long as that's taken care of, the size of the content doesn't really matter. Because content is such a, it's this term that is so overused, and
we're leading to this term which starts with a V.
Yeah, the term which starts with a V, and then now this whole thing about everything has like a content thing added to it, right? And everything is content, and I have a designation which includes that word, which doesn't make my life any easier. But content has become a large part of the mix of what you do.
Absolutely, but now it's also, I think, over a period of time, and going back to the traditional aspect of it, right? Your content would be restricted to a certain medium.
True.
Right? And you're building that content for that medium. Right? If you know it's print, it's print. If it's radio, it's radio.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a mix of both. The message carries across.
Yeah.
But today, now that we're so big on video, is because video is everywhere.
Yeah.
A lot of people discover TVCs on YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, the irony of discovering a TVC on YouTube, and I mean, my biggest pet peeve, and I'm being very tactical here, is when brands put up their TVCs on YouTube, and then they'll put YouTube money behind it, or advertising dollars behind it, and the name, the literal title will say TVC 30-second promo.
Yeah. Because no one's forget optimizing for digital. You have forgotten to take the slate off.
Correct. I mean, that is where some of the rigor is missing.
Yeah.
But that will come. It's only a matter of time.
It's much better now.
I'm sure.
3 years ago now, I see less title slates now than I did 3 years ago.
Yeah, if that is a barometer of where we're going, I think we'll get better as a community of people who are interested in marketing.
Yeah.
As we make better content, and if it's going to be targeted to your audience.
Yeah.
And you're putting money behind it, how you're making the most of the content you're putting out.
True.
And content, I mean, it's a buzzword to a large degree. It gets misused. It gets
There's
misunderstood.
content and there is branded content, and those are two such overused terms. It's not even funny.
Yeah, I mean, when agencies and brands come together to make branded content, and you will see this on YouTube a lot, right? Like the one thing I love about YouTube as content creators, the real people who are, I mean, there was this article recently which I was reading, I think it was New York Times or something, where they spoke about the difference between an influencer and a content creator. Okay. YouTube is very specific when they talk about content creators. They don't call them content influencers or influencers. And you see how they've, reimagined the 3-act play. Right?
Yeah.
There is the setup, then there is the conflict, and then there's the resolution.
Yeah, here you start with the conflict.
There's a hook right at the start, then followed by the brand.
Yeah.
Because people hate being, people hate when a brand sneaks up on them in content.
True.
Honesty has always been the one thing that honesty also translates to authenticity.
Yeah.
When you're making content, especially for creators.
It's like, have you seen how movie trailers have evolved on YouTube, right? Is that you get that sneak peek of everything that's coming before the actual trailer starts, which is such an interesting evolution of what it's a mini trailer before a trailer.
I love what they call it. It's called a motion poster. Trailer. I remember this bunch of comics did like a cool piece of content around it, where they were basically enacting these different pieces of content that they built. Like there is a sneak peek, then there's a poster, then there's the music release, and so on and so forth. So
you also spend a fair amount of your time traveling outside of India for work, right? How do you see the difference in how the ecosystem functions within India and outside, because there is a large difference in the market. But have you seen a large difference in the way things function?
So I haven't had the luxury to work for an extended period of time abroad, but considering we're such a global organization, LinkedIn being such a huge company, and we have over 560 million members globally. It's been a privilege to be able to visit so many countries and being able to interact with these teams, because smart people are smart everywhere.
True.
Right. I've had the opportunity to meet some of our agencies abroad as well. I've had the opportunity to host them while they were in India, and give them the tour of Bombay. Very excited to big Bombay fan. So I love the fact that it transcends language or barriers. And we recently had a campaign on the IPL, right? And maybe not everyone across the world will understand what an IPL is.
Exactly.
But when you start drawing parallels and you say, hey, it's like the Super Bowl, but better. They get it. Ideas travel pretty freely. And that's also, that's a compliment to the culture we have, where everyone's allowed to speak to anyone, and you're allowed to share ideas, you're allowed to connect with people you think are interesting, and it's not restricted to marketers. We work across communication, social impact, so it's a huge team, right? And those people and I keep saying those people, there's still people at LinkedIn, they all speak the same values. Right, we're trying to get to the same end result. And being a part of a global campaign, and I've heard a lot of people talk about this, is some companies, what they would do is they'd be in HQ, and that could be anywhere in the world. If you're in APAC, it could be Singapore. It could, if it's Silicon Valley, that HQ could be anywhere, and they'll build a piece of content. They'll send it to you and say, hey, localize it. Right. I mean, what does localization mean? Right. Put Indian faces,
because the idea might not work in India.
So that's where I said we've gotten so much better.
I know. Which is every time we work on the campaign, I realize the fact that how we've taken a global idea and kind of changed it for the market, and that's so important.
You have to adapt and innovate. And I mean, full disclosure, LinkedIn and Glitch work very closely. We have for some time now, but that is why, coming back to the way how we work together, right? Making sure you see my side of the story. Right. And there's certain secrecy which is involved around internal approvals and. But that shouldn't be the case. Like, tell you upfront, hey, I need to run this past X number of people. I'm giving you my feedback because I want to keep my job.
True.
But there will be feedback incoming in the next week or so. So expect it.
And feedback, honestly, this is my point of view on feedback, right? Feedback, if any feedback makes something better, that's always important, right? I think the only time agency folk get frustrated is when the feedback is yellow is not yellow enough.
Correct.
I go back to my favorite example of recent.
Absolutely. No, that is also from, are you making the most of your time?
Exactly.
As a marketer, as an agency, are you making sure your priorities are straight?
Because you forget the consumer voice sometimes, right? Because the consumer doesn't really care, right? About some of those things.
Am I looking at the yellow, or is it an emotion that you're tugging on?
And it also then cuts back on how you even look at how you make a creative, right? I know for a fact there would be directors who would want to say, I want a certain tone of magenta in the light, so I will go to South Africa to shoot it. And the modern agency and marketer should say, no, why?
I mean, that's also right. The ability to be able to question these decisions. Like, is your agency empowered enough?
True.
To come up and say, hey, you know what? That doesn't make sense.
Or don't do this. It's not. You're wasting money on this. And
exactly.
It's important to turn around and say those things.
But that's also important for the brand marketer themselves to be empowered in the culture that they're in. Right. If someone's going to tell them it's this way or the highway, they're going to come back to the agency and say the same thing. Hey, it's this way or the highway. But if the marketer's not empowered, no one along the way is.
And that's not a relationship that will work on either side. I don't think it will work between the marketer and the agency, or it won't work even internally within the thing, because at some point someone's going to get frustrated and just kind of move on, right? That's not a long-standing relationship.
It's not. So that is why these great pieces of content come out of these amazing relationships between agencies and marketers, where the lines are blurred. You stop being an agency and you stop being a marketer. You be a person who enjoys building content.
Exactly.
Right? Can we make the best of what we have? Can we demand excellence of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And when that adds up, like you don't come up with an idea one day and tomorrow it's, I'm sorry, but viral. But... And that's same, like going back to the viral conversation, right? I've heard agencies say, hey, we have a viral idea. I've heard brand marketers say, hey, I have a viral idea.
Viral is a disease. It is not a
exactly.
video.
You have an idea.
Yeah.
It has not been done yet. We'll find out if it's popular, right? You can't have a viral idea. That is just ironic.
I've hated it for so many years. It is not even funny.
Yeah, I mean, but I was digressing. Coming back to the point of are you empowered enough to say no?
Yeah.
Are you empowered enough to have a voice? Are you just there to do what the client needs? Is that going to be the end all of it? That's not going to be a long-standing relationship.
It's important to sometimes push back because that's how respect is also built, right? You kind of realize that that's really how you... And I have this standard term which I'm evolving a little bit, saying agencies and brands are like friends. Friends tend to sometimes be stupid, sometimes be stubborn, but you need to be able to have that conversation and push back and come to a resolution, and that's really...
No, I absolutely agree. I think that relationship has to be built by both sides. If the agency can, have the appetite, and so does the brand marketer to be able to, work together. Go have a drink. I don't know what Rose bought. Make sure you're talking on a level which is outside of work.
Exactly.
Because... And you hear a lot of people talk about, have you not watched Game of Thrones? How do you not watch Game of Thrones? Right? How do you not like it?
Yeah.
I was born in a different place. I've grown up in different circumstances. I've been exposed to X number of things which are very different from you.
Yeah.
How are we expected to like the same place
of
content?
I like Rohit Shetty movies. That's my taste. It's like...
I'm a big fan of Rohit Shetty movies now that we're going to Bollywood. It's a black hole. But I was having this conversation where they were very, polarized about Rohit Shetty movies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, he's making money.
Yeah.
Do you think he really cares about the 1% who don't go watch his movies?
Because they want to use their brains there, which you're not supposed to use anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go say you don't need to use your brains. I mean, they're smart in a way where...
he makes fun of it, right? So his... I think his last Golmaal movie, the line was, no logic, only magic was the tagline of the movie. So he's playing to the gallery.
I mean, if he's like enjoying it and living it up, fantastic. But he's making money, right? He's paying his bills. He's making sure his next movie is better than the last one. And if you don't like it, don't watch it. No one's forcing you to watch it.
Exactly.
I mean, go tweet about it if you want. Have an opinion, sure. No, there's no point having an opinion. Don't push that opinion on someone else.
True.
Same holds true when you work with an agency.
Yeah.
If you have an opinion, make sure you present it in full, make sure it's everyone who needs to know knows. But if someone has an opposing opinion, have the ability, and I think this was, I don't know who said this, this is one of my favorite quotes, have the ability to entertain a thought without accepting it. Right?
Yeah, that's so true.
Put yourself in their shoes, see what they live like, and then maybe we'll come to a conclusion.
Yeah. I'm going to dig into these things a little more, but I've been getting enough timeout signals saying we need to go in for our second break. So, we'll be right back with advertising instead.
Hey everybody, welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the month, Savari, Storytel, and Paytm Money. Thank you for your support. Also, guys, we're still hiring, and as I've mentioned before, I think IVM Podcast is probably the best place to work in the world. So if you're interested in joining our team, we're looking for producers, content creators, audio engineers, developers. We're looking for business development people. We're looking for data scientists. We're looking for all kinds of roles. So if you're interested, send us an email to careers@indusvox.com and we shall get back to you, hopefully, and get you on board. We have a brand new show launching called The Origin of Things. It's hosted by one of the co-hosts of Simplified, Deepak Gopalkrishnan, better known as Chuck. On this show, he'll be focusing on the origin of famous brands. Chuck will drop fascinating hints throughout the episode, but the brand is revealed only at the very end. Will you be able to guess the brand before the reveal? Find out by tuning into the first episode launching on Wednesday, 19th of June. And Keeping It Queer is back with Season 3. The new season has more of everything, from stories to debates to discussions. The show also has two hosts now, Naveen Narona and Farhad Karkaria. Tune into the first episode of their reunion. On Cyrus Says, filmmaker Jaideep Sarkar talks to Cyrus about his early days in showbiz, why he enjoys making ad films more than features, and his recent launch film for Times of India's Times Out and Proud campaign. On Business.next, by Bloomberg Quint, Govindraj Athiraj talks to co-author of the best-selling book Fish, Harry Paul. They talk about the importance of a culture of excellence in an organization and how it is one of the most integral parts of employee management. On Edges and Sludges, our new cricket podcast, Ashwin, Varun and DJ are talking to the cricketers and Atif Nawaz about the ongoing ICC Cricket World Cup. On the 99th episode of the Pragati podcast, Pawan is joined by Dr. A.P. Ashwin Kumar from the Center of Learning Futures to unpack nationalism, language and identity. Nationalism is also the topic of discussion on episode 39 of Pulyabazi, where Pranay and Saurabh are joined by Nitin Pai, director of the Takshashila Institution. On this episode, they specifically look at liberal aspects of nationalism. On Shunya 1, Sheila Ditya and I are joined by Pranav Kosari, founder of Flick and co-founder of Brandy. We talk about Flick, the world's smartest button, and Pranav's future plans in India. And with that, let's continue with your show.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. This is the point when I'm going. There is this one show which has a weird connection between on both our sides. So there's a show called Get a Job, which you've been working on at LinkedIn for years with MTV, which is, I wouldn't call it a reality show. I would call it what would you call it? It's a career-based content series. Is that a good way to put it?
Yes, branded content.
Branded content. Sorry. So there was an early, I wouldn't say early evolution. There was another job-related show, but that was a reality show that MTV had done years ago, which was incidentally my first ever show, which was a show called On the Job.
Well,
so it's quite interesting how those two things kind of connect after this time. But it's interesting in terms of what you do with Get a Job, right? Because if you look at it, it's not a traditional TV property or rather a digital property or a content property, but it's something that I have seen so many people talk about from a very different. I once met a guy when I was doing a TEDx talk, is one of the guys organizing it. He said one of the prime things on his CV was the fact that he won
Get a Job?
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
he was kind of putting it across to that. So it's very interesting what that property's been like.
Yeah, I think so. Very close to Get a Job. It's in its 5th season now. I think we just finished the last episode. The idea behind Get a Job was actually helping people who just out of college, and internships are a completely different beast from finding a job.
Yeah.
So when you're out there hunting for an internship, and every college-going kid has this dream, right? They have this dream company that they want to work with.
Yeah.
It could be something that is a consumer touch point. It could be an Apple, or it could be, an Amazon because if they bought goods of Amazon.
Yeah.
It could be a Dell because they bought a Dell computer, or it could be a Mercedes because I love the cars. Yeah. The idea of that aspiration, and we wanted every student to, have an opportunity to have a foot in the door with these amazing, huge brands in India.
Yeah.
Right? That's how it started.
Yeah.
Where we just wanted to make sure you kickstart your career in the way you imagined it.
True.
And so we work with some of the most amazing brands across the 5 years. And there's so many amazing stories that come out of these because it's, like I said, it's not reality TV.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the fact that we actually shoot it and then put it up on TV. That's the only difference between them actually getting that job and it being on TV.
Yeah.
So, and working with these brands across India. So we were working with Jio recently. We work with Amazon, like I said, and we work with so many big brands, and these amazing kids apply to these roles.
Yeah.
And what we do is we actually take the finalists and we fly them down to the company's premises.
Yeah.
So let's say you get shortlisted, and LinkedIn's also a job on there. So we actually have a bunch of students fly down to our office, and we want to make sure they get a hang of what the office feels like, what a working at LinkedIn feels like, because sometimes you obviously can't envision what is it to be behind the desk at an Amazon or a Reliance, or it's just so distant.
Yeah.
That. And you're still.
And you have a different perception of it than what the reality actually is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it tells you so many things. It could, make or break of what you think your perception is of that company.
Yeah.
And it opens you up to what the real world is like. And I'm using that, with a grain of salt. The real world is a real world everywhere. You could be in college. Yeah. But once you actually get into the, the professional sphere where you want to make a living, when you want to make yourself better and you want to be a professional, how do you make that switch? And nothing better than some of the biggest names in the country on your LinkedIn profile. So, that's an amazing story. I heard so many people talk about Get a Job in the first year that it started, because someone told me, and I quote that person without his or her permission, but she said, this is the true democratization of opportunity.
Yeah.
Where everyone who's anyone across, geographies or strata, they have the ability to apply for a role.
Yeah.
Get a foot in the door.
Yeah.
That was the idea and it's been 5 years since. And I think MTV is a fantastic partner because they get, they speak to the audience on a day-to-day basis.
True.
So which is why we partnered with MTV in the first place. We wanted to make sure that yes, we want to get this message out, but we want to get the message out the right way, and that's how when MTV came in.
Yeah. What's also interesting is the fact that it's the anti-roadies in my mind. Right? And not to put it, that's where I started off. So I wouldn't never put roadies on. But the fact is, it's about there is one side of what we perceive young people want to do is in terms of popular television, all that stuff is, they want to be on a roadies or a Spitzville and all that stuff. But the large contingent who actually want to go towards careers, right? And there's one side that's always been glamorized. This is a way to kind of showcase the other side as well, which is far larger in numbers than what this side would be.
Yeah, like to your point, I wouldn't put roadies on either. I think it does really well for what it's worth. There's an audience for it. They watch it, they enjoy it. Sometimes you don't want to be thinking about work.
Yeah,
I get it. The idea behind Get a Job was also, making sure all these aspirations come together, and then we can put out content that you will then want to watch.
Yeah.
We also, use that content as a vehicle of what you should be doing. Like, because there are just 12 jobs on the show, but there are millions of opportunities on LinkedIn, right?
True.
You can still apply for those. You don't have to be a finalist on the job. You can be on LinkedIn. It's free.
Yeah.
Sign up. What are the different things that you could be doing? What are the different, levers you could be pulling where you want to reach out to someone?
Yeah.
Right? It could be someone in the industry, someone who's working at a firm that you want to apply for, reaching out to a recruiter. There are some good to haves and good to know. So we use this as a vehicle to make sure that everyone's, aware. They're all educated. They all understand the different vagaries of, applying for a role. And it's because at the end of the day, you're also trying to reach out to another human. Right?
True.
You're not reaching out to like a machine.
Yeah.
So there is a certain way you should do it, and it's not there is no right way. Any number of ways could work for you.
Yeah.
But here are 3 ways that work for us. Why don't you try these?
And how have you? Because LinkedIn occupies a very different space, right? I would say it's a very differentiated space from what I wouldn't call it a social media company. I wouldn't call it. When you approach brand marketing, when you look at content per se as part of that mix, what is your focus kind of been? How do you kind of look at that aspect in terms of when you do it?
So building content for LinkedIn is actually some of the, and I've worked with a couple of firms before this, and I pride myself for that content, and same goes for Get a Job. Like, these are real people getting real jobs in real companies.
Yeah.
Right? None of it is a gimmick.
Yeah.
Right? These are real students who've actually applied through LinkedIn, and they've been shortlisted, they made the cut, and then they got a role. Same holds true for any other piece of content that we build with LinkedIn. We focus on all our amazing members who've gotten a job off the platform, right? We recently did this campaign in the IPL, which was celebrating our members. And one of the things that we talk about at LinkedIn as one of our core values is putting our members first, right? Instead of celebrating, the ability of LinkedIn to help you get the job, we actually celebrated the members who got a job. Because like I said, there are many ways to do that one thing.
Yeah.
And those stories are all amazing. We had 4 stories. There is Gayatri, who incidentally used to work at The Glitch before she moved to JioSaavn. Yeah. She actually made the switch she was from a financial background. Yeah. She had a flair for marketing. She used to write. She used LinkedIn to make that switch, right? There are so many people out there who are in a career that they think they want to move out of. Yeah. So this is actually a fantastic example of someone who made that switch using LinkedIn. And
that's a constant conversation. That a lot of we get a lot of messages from students, from people in careers, and I have a personal. People say I've started to have a personal agenda about engineers and where they kind of end up and what engineering does to them. But that's. But I've noticed that a lot of people start off wanting to do technical jobs because that's what we traditionally went towards. But are vying to work on, let's say, on marketing or a creative profession in that sense. And where they kind of get worried is that, I haven't studied this, so can I do that? Or how do I even go about it? Who do I reach out to? How do I even figure these things? And that's a constant worry. I know you studied a media course, and then you did the agency stint. You were at Sportskeeda for some time, Disney, and then LinkedIn. What do you really need to know to be a brand marketer now? I mean, so that because I know it's not just the degree.
Absolutely, it's never just the degree.
Yeah,
it's and the good part about that is students today know that. Yeah. They know the degree is a means to an end. The degree is not the end, they need to be putting themselves out there. And with the number of opportunities they have access to today, they're putting themselves out there. And I love the fact that, comics keep talking about, I left my corporate job and, this is my release. And it was really funny. I think Kenneth Sebastian, just yesterday, someone reached out to him on Instagram and he said, hey, this is such a cool life. How do I become a comedian?
Yeah.
And he went on to list the amount of drudgery he had to do for 6 years plus.
Yeah.
To get to that stage, right? You see only the end result. You see the shiny part of it.
Exactly.
Everything else before that seems like it was meant to be, right?
True.
But it's not that serendipitous. It happens over a period of time and it adds up what you do on a day-to-day basis. So students today know that. They're aware, they put themselves out, and if you think you're being restricted in your career, I would highly recommend someone to take like a moonlighting gig. What stops you from, the obvious one right now is, can I go from being like someone who works at a brand to being a stand-up guy, or like a finance guy to a stand-up guy?
Yeah. I've seen so many people do that.
Do it. What's stopping you? And there's nothing truer than an open mic that will tell you what you're worth.
Yeah.
Same goes for take up an internship. You think you're creative, you think you can kill it at a glitch or in a Gilvey. What is stopping you from, like, if you don't do it, you'll regret it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
If you do it and fail, sure, at least I tried.
True.
Right? That's the difference. And how long can you put up with that? Students are way too smart today to, put up with the regret. So
I was talking to this guy online who messaged me, right? And he was like, he's not from a metro, and he was in Raipur or Nagpur, and he was like, my problem is I'm studying towards a technical degree, but I really want to be a copywriter. I want to write stuff, but I don't know how to go about it. And my response to him was the fact that don't look at, I want to come to Bombay or a Delhi or a Bangalore to do this. Figure something in the place you are, because if you want to write, and especially you want to write copy for digital, every store, every company needs social media now.
Absolutely.
So just offer your services. Say this is what I can do for you. Do it for free if need be. But that's how you also figure out if you do a good job or not. And that's how you build a portfolio.
Yeah.
The glamorization of what tier 1 cities give to careers is fast going away.
Yeah, and going back to the degree, right? Like I said, this guy is studying towards a technical course.
Yeah.
There is enough and more opportunity out there.
Yeah.
And only real world feedback can get you to be better. No amount of, putting a head down in a management course will make me a better manager.
Yeah.
Right? No amount of putting your eggs in a certain, ideology is going to make you better. Unless you actually speak to the people you're working with, who then give you real feedback. Hey, and some of it is fairly tactical. And that makes it, that much harder to become better. Like, strategy is great for 30,000 feet.
Yeah.
But, does that really boil down to day-to-day basis? No, it doesn't. So students who are, in like studying towards a technical degree for that instance, and I know a large contingent of them do, are they, because they're in a college, the universities have theatre groups, they have events cells, they have placement cells, they have so many activities happening in and around university, right? Are you participating in that? Because I know when I was in SIMC, and we're alumni, so I'm actually going to SIMC just on Friday, and my whole world is coming full circle. So we did not actually feel the need to participate because we said, oh no, this is not real work. Once we get into the real world, then it'll be real work.
Yeah.
That's not true. People are people everywhere. Dealing with students is way harder.
Oh my God.
Especially when you're a student yourself. And I remember, just making sure there were bums on seats. It's so hard to do when you're like a part of an event cell or you're doing something.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That sets you up for what drudgery is. And every job has drudgery. But that's 10%. What do you make of that drudgery? How do you get better? Is, you going through life.
I look at it as colleges are important because you make the friends you work with post that. Forever. Like I still hang with the same bunch I used to hang with since college, and that's kind of that's actually the best part that comes with it, because you're all moving to different places which you didn't live in before.
Absolutely.
And working in newer organizations, you will make some friends there, but these are friends that kind of stick with you, and then they kind of become your support, and that's the most important part. You are trying something out, you are getting into a career, you need to have enough support, and that's not necessarily always family. And family is amazing to have, to support, but it's important to have people who are also going through the same thing you are.
Correct.
And that really helps. What's also helped for you has been sport.
Oh, yeah.
That's where that is an interesting segue. I know. I point out good segues.
Yeah, there was a hard turn
towards this. But yes, sports your thing. I remember that you and I chatted when Gaurav was on the show, and you also broke your leg playing football recently.
Yes, I did recently. I actually tore a ligament in my left leg. So huge fan, especially I love what Gaurav Kapoor brings to the table, and I used to actually follow him. Funnily enough, back when he was hosting Basement on Channel V.
Oh, wow.
So like throwback to MTV Select and Basement.
Yeah.
I've always been interested in sport, and I've always thought about, like growing up, everyone would tell me, make your passion your career. Then you'd never have to work a day in your life. Like if I'm working on my passion the whole day, what am I doing in my free time?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So sport has been great because it's a great equalizer.
True.
Sport, especially like football, I'm a huge football fan. I'm an Arsenal supporter. I actually made, at some point in time, my living with sport. When I was in college, we used to have something called project status, where you need to get certain electives and you have to have credits. I work with Goal.com, which was back then, I think, the end all of football.
Yeah.
And having that on my LinkedIn profile actually helped me start many more conversations. I used to freelance for Sportskeeda at one point in time.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that on your LinkedIn profile already.
A great plug. So that was something that actually. So going back to the idea, right? Are you doing more than what you're expected to?
True.
And I'm not complimenting myself. It was me trying to make some extra money on the side to make sure all my vices were paid for. But me writing a sports article could be you doing stand-up.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a fine parallel there, and I have made money making memes. And like I have hit every lever I could find to just put myself out there and see if there's an opportunity. Can I grab that opportunity?
Yeah.
And you'll tell me if I suck.
Yeah.
Right? You'll be
the beauty of today's world is you get immediate feedback.
Yeah. Immediate feedback is great because you get up and you go back again.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very hard to do, especially for students who are just coming out. Failure is hard to take, which I get. And it's really hard to talk about failure, to be able to verbalize it, because it's an emotion that only you can entertain. Like sometimes you fail as a group, but sometimes when you fail by yourself, people can sympathize, they can't empathize, because then how are you making yourself better after that? So sport is a great equalizer when you, like I said, right, you lose today, but then there's a game again tomorrow, you go back, then you win. And there are such amazing idols you can pick from sport, which teach you grit, which also teach you to look forward. Right? A lot of these cricketers are now coming into commentary. Right? You cannot be a cricketer for all your life. You cannot be a tennis player for all your life. You can't be a footballer all your life. Are you planning for the future? Right? Are you making Gaurav Kapoor?
You learn values, right? You learn everyone's talking about that one incident in the Australia match, which I think is going to stay for a while, is the fact that Kohli turned to the crowd and said, "Stop booing, clap for him," to Smith. And I think that's so important. That teaches you so much about what you need to be as a leader. And considering someone said this is like the transition of Kohli from what he was in the early days in perception-wise and what he is now, it's just that. It's just that's how you show growth. And
that's an added layer. Like, I don't think he'll ever become a different person. He'll polish himself to a certain degree. He'll become more media friendly. He'll be that face that, because you're also the captain of the Indian cricket team.
Exactly. Toughest job in the world.
Indian men's cricket team. Yeah, you have so many hopes on your shoulders. He'll become better at it, but the more he grows into that role, that aggression will still hold its place. Right?
Because that's core to him, to what he is, right? It's learning to have that balance is what kind of. So I'm terrible. I'm like no sports. Okay, ever cannot play sport.
I can't even imagine that life.
I was like, I've never really. So there was a time I would like to play basketball, but that was way far back. I follow CrossFit as a sport. If that's It's one of the most exciting sports to follow. You should check it out. It's interesting how they've taken that and made it a sport. I am a huge propagator for.
Is this like the American Ninja Warrior kind of sport?
So this is actually, they do this thing. It's good. There's something called the CrossFit Games that happens every year. It happens in somewhere in Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And what they actually get is this: they get people from across the world. They do this thing called the CrossFit Open, where they give certain workouts, which is basically a series of exercises, which you can do live. You just need to do it in a CrossFit gym if someone's checking if you're doing it right.
Oh, wow.
Whoever gets the best timings becomes a shortlist, and they come for the games. And then it's 4 days of non-stop, like you are doing like a couple kilometers run, and then doing some 50 thrusters, and then doing so many of these things, and it's nuts.
Yeah, CrossFit is pretty insane.
It's hardcore.
But like, it's like, are you getting to that end result, right? Be it CrossFit, be it football, cricket, tennis, whatever it is that cuts it for you.
I have terrible hand-eye coordination. That is the problem.
I'm sure if you try hard enough,
maybe
you'll get there.
I think I want to try this one again. Maybe play squash. Maybe that's the thing.
I will join you. I've never played squash. I've always thought squash is the biggest calorie burner. I will join you.
I will try this one.
Yeah.
Let me see. We come into that part which we discussed before we started this.
Yes.
Which is I'm not calling it a rapid fire anymore. We're calling it our better version of suggestions. Let's call it what it is.
So unromantic.
So unromantic, but it's fun. Are you a big reader?
I used to be a voracious reader, but that went away somewhere in the middle. I still read from time to time, but it's funny that I've made that switch from, being a completely fiction guy to now enjoying non-fiction.
Yeah, I can't do fiction anymore.
Yeah, like non-fiction back then sounded to me like the monk who sold his Ferrari, and I'm like,
I cannot read Robin Sharma. It's like,
I mean, that I wasn't sure if I could, I've never tried it.
I tried. It did not work.
It did not work. Okay. So I'm now pivoting. I forgot that word.
Yeah.
I should have used it much earlier. Damn it. So I recently started reading about, considering I work so closely with people in Silicon Valley, and I've watched the show Silicon Valley. It feels so real to watch the show. It's amazing. So I try and find stories that, happen in and around there. Because some of the world's biggest products have come out of Silicon Valley. LinkedIn came out of Silicon Valley. Facebook. Now I'm actually reading this book by Billy Gallagher, who used to be a writer on TechCrunch, if I'm not wrong. He wrote the Snapchat story, which is how to turn down $1 billion. So I was like, that I really want to know.
That's interesting. That's
I've gotten through like 75% of it. But the problem with that is I know what happened.
That's true.
It's not like there's a murderer at the end of it.
It's not like, so in places where you know what happened, but you want to know is like Shoe Dog, right? You should read.
Correct.
Yeah, Shoe Dog is a great book because you know that Nike is what it is, but the way he got there is, and it's not what you'd expect.
Yeah. It's not.
He was quite he's not a cool guy. He's like, he was just lucky. He just got a scrape through. But
it's funny. You see at the start of the book, and it talks about, and I reread this again, and it said, I look at my wall, and there are these awards and blue ribbons, and I'm like, oh wow, this is foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So
it's Shoe Dog's a fun book to read.
Yeah. One more book I would recommend is Silk Road. Which is by Nick Bilton, which talks about this site which was set up long ago, which started with the ability to transact contraband, and then it spiraled out into something else, and then the book is told from two different perspectives: the guy who started it and the FBI agent, and this is a real story. So I would highly recommend that.
Oh, I'm going to do that one. Music.
So, a huge pop fan, and anyone who's around me will vouch for that.
Okay.
I love my metal to a certain degree. I like my hard, like my soft rock and classic rock. But then I'm such a sucker for pop, and it's like a guilty pleasure. And I don't know how big a fan of FIFA you are, but
I know the soundtracks. Yeah,
the soundtracks are the best way to discover new music. Like every year,
there's a podcast which Vox does called Switched On Pop. Which is very interesting because it talks about the stories behind pop, and it's such an interesting layer to have.
Yeah, the chords which made them popular, right? The 4 chords or 3 chords or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Vox, by the way. Their graphics are unparalleled.
It's my favorite reference point for Too Many Things.
I think Vox does, yes.
Yeah.
Too Many Things. Maybe you should just focus, but.
My favorite part about Vox actually is The Verge, because I'm a tech journalism junkie. I cannot get enough of.
Yeah, but you're also an Apple fanboy.
So I'm not an Apple fanboy as much anymore. How I like to put it is I'm part of an ecosystem. It'll take a lot for me to get out of it because, like for instance, I'm not a biggest fan of the iPhone anymore. I think it's fine. I manage, but I'm a huge fan of the iPad Pro. It has changed the way I work. Like I started off with the iPad Air years ago, trying to say I will do this experiment I will try for 6 months. I will work only on the iPad. Succeeded 70% of the time. When the first iPad Pro came out, that 70% came out to 80%. Now with the new one, I'm at like 95%.
Wow.
Only time is the rare occurrences where it's a complicated Excel sheet where I need to really work on it is when I take it out.
Yeah.
Or if it's a bank website. Because bank websites are not optimized for...
I totally buy that.
But I hardly ever use it. Like we recently started moving from Google Gmail to Outlook. And I was like, it doesn't matter, take my laptop, because I've been using Outlook on my phone and my iPad. But what I find interesting is with The Verge is that Nilay Patel has a very non-Apple perspective, but they also have...
The only guy on The Verge, I think, has a non-Apple perspective.
But I like Dieter more. Dieter, I think, is on that balance. He's got the quirk to be able to...
Yeah, I'm a big MKBHD fan, so... Very...
MKBHD is like, it's crazy how... You saw the first review you ever did, that's a video to watch. The first ever review video he did, he posted it sometime back. So, which is when he was 16...
Oh, wow.
Was his first video he reviewed. I forgot what it was, but it's great to see what his first ever video was and what his video was.
Oh, this is the 30-minute retro tech something.
No, there's another one. I think I'll show it to you on that. And but it's great to watch how the evolution of a creator happens, right? What can you whip up in an instant?
I'm huge on Bollywood, so Bollywood references. I love talking about Bollywood. And funny, we were talking about agencies and clients, and this scene from Golmaal, the original Golmaal. No offense to Rohit Shetty, the original Golmaal like stuck with me. Where I don't know how familiar you are with the movie, but Ram Prasad Sharma, who's played by Amol Palkar, he walks into the office early, and his expectation is, his boss's expectation is that don't stay late because there is no overtime that we're paying.
Yeah.
And I mean, going from there and expecting to work weekends is a huge jump that we made.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a different world now.
It is extremely, but I mean, I love simpler times. But they were simpler times because...
But I don't know how people got work done without cell phones. Like, I don't know how that worked.
Yeah, I don't remember it. I actually remember a time when we did not have cell phones and we were expected to meet at a place. We would wait without knowing if the other person is ever going to come.
Yeah.
It's the hope that kills you.
I also once had a meeting where someone called us 5 kilometers away and then showed us a printout of an email.
Oh,
so
okay.
That is the transition point of where digital and analog. I will never name who that client was, but I will.
Tell me after.
Yeah. Why will advertising not die?
Advertising will never die. People will continue to buy products. People will continue to make products. Advertising is the single thing that connects the two. How else? What else will we talk about otherwise? I mean, advertising is what makes the world run. From TV channels who run on ad revenue to websites to print publications who were expected to die a long time ago, and they're still, doing really well. I think advertising makes the world go round. So I think we're far from dying.
Yeah.
And I like to say we.
Yeah.
So then I couple myself.
That's the whole part, right?
Yeah.
Like we said, we started off with saying partners. That's really what it is.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was fun.
Yeah, this was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I will tell you which client said that.
Yes.
Gave me the printout.
Yeah.
Thank guys. That's this week's Advertising is Dead. Tata. I don't know.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter, and listen in to the Equity Sahiya podcast brought to you by Motilal Oswal Asset Management Company. The Equity Sahiya podcast offers deep investment insights into the potential of many sectors in India which are growing and have a lot to offer for your portfolio. New episodes out every Tuesday on the IVM Podcast app or any other app where you get your podcasts from.
Who said healthy food is boring? Who said raw veggies is just salads? Who said eating fats makes you fat? Look forward to my recommendations on healthy food and exercise hacks on the Kinetic Living podcast with me, Coach Urmi, every Wednesday on the IVM app, website, and anywhere you get your podcast from.